Where and when were you born?
I was born in 1945 in Waco, Texas at McClellan County Air Force Base. My dad was an engine mechanic and a propeller specialist at the World War II Flight Training School in Midland, Odessa, Texas.
Who are your parents and what are their occupations?
My father was Milburn West, and he was an auto body mechanic, and he passed away in 2001. And my mom worked out at Scott Air Force Base as civil service, and she's 94 and still going strong.
Do you have any siblings?
I have a brother, Gary, and he's 4 years younger than I am.
Did he serve in the military?
Yep, Gary was in the United States Army, and he was a deep sea salvage diver.
What did you do before you entered the service?
I worked at Granite City Steel.
In which branch of military did you serve?
I was in the United States Navy. I was in the Seabees, a heavy equipment operator.
Did you enlist or were you drafted?
No, I stopped by the Selective Service office in September of 1965 in Belleville, and they told me that I was number 3 to go in October draft. So I went and talked to my dad, and I went down and enlisted in the Seabees.
What happened when you were departed for training camp and during the early days of training?
It was pretty uneventful. Mom and Dad took me to the train station, put me on the train, and I went up to basic training at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center in December and January, and it was cold, real cold.
Do you recall any of your instructors? If so, what were they like?
I tried real hard not to remember any of my instructors because they were very strict, very disciplined, and very loud.
Did you receive any special training?
Yeah, I received special training in heavy equipment operation, in cranes, bulldozers, earth movers, just about any earth moving equipment.
How did you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
You adapt real fast. Your life is totally laid out for you. The food wasn't bad. That was one of the good parts about being in the Navy, that the food was reasonably good. We trained from sun up until sundown, and then we slept and got up and did the same thing the next day. And that went on for 6 weeks.
Where did you serve?
I was stationed. My home station was in Fort Hueneme, California. That was the West Coast base for the Seabees, and then I deployed from there over to Vietnam 3 times.
What are some memories that you have of the experience?
While we were rotating in California, it wasn't bad. We went to training from like 6 to 4 or 6 to 3 in the afternoon, and then we had free time to ourselves. Over in Vietnam, it wasn't very good.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
I really, when I was in California, In between tours, I would call and talk to my mom and dad on the phone and my brother. But once we got over to Vietnam, it was hard to get mail in and hard to get mail out, so I very seldom wrote to them. I did get to go to Australia once on R&R, and while I was in Australia, I called them from Australia and talked with them.
What did you do while you were in Australia?
I partied. It just, huh? I didn't, I sightseed a little bit, went sightseeing a little bit and swimming in the ocean and that, but for the most part I just detached myself from overseas.
What did you do when you were off duty or in recreation?
Pardon me?
What did you do whenever you were off duty?
Oh, we were hardly ever off duty. Out in California, when we were there, I played tennis quite a bit. But when we were deployed overseas, we worked from 6 in the morning until 8 or 10 at night. We didn't have any recreation time. The only time we got off was Sunday afternoon, and then on Sunday afternoon we'd have steak fries or maybe some boxing matches or something.
Where were you when the war ended?
I was back here in Granite in 1975.
How did you return home?
Oh, let's see. They flew us back and forth from California to Vietnam, and then once I got discharged in January of 1969, I had a old '59 Chevrolet, and I drove home with a couple friends of mine.
How were you received by your family and community?
My family was glad to see me. The community was a little indifferent to the whole thing. There again, I pretty much detached myself from most of my friends and stuff, and just went about my own business.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
After being in the service for 4 years, you don't really readjust to civilian life. You tolerate civilian life. You pretty much have to just reorganize your entire life to not being so regimented and I guess going back to being in control of your own life.
Have you remained in contact or reunited with fellow veterans?
Yeah.
If so, who?
Yeah, I've got some friends that I was in MCB 11 with, and we keep in touch. I can't remember all their names right now. Dan Brown, Danny Teresi, Grady McEachern. Every year we have an MCB 11 Association reunion, and this year my wife and I are going up to Sioux Falls, South Dakota for our battalion reunion, so I'll see a bunch of them up there.
How did you adapt to military? Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
Yeah, I'm a member of the American Legion up in Collinsville, Illinois. I'm president of the American Legion Riders up there, and I'm a senior vice commander and adjutant at the post.
What all have you done since separating from the military?
What all have I done? Oh, when I got back, I went back to work at the steel mill, and I worked at the steel mill for 37 years. And I retired from there when I was 55. I went down to South St. Louis and got a job in a big machine shop, and I worked down there for another 15 years, and I finally retired a second time when I was 70, and have just been riding my motorcycle and enjoying myself.
How did did your wartime experiences affect your life?
Anybody that goes through that kind of an experience, their heart is marked forever, and you look at life with a more precious eye than you would if you hadn't been in the war. You're very, very protective of your family and your grandkids, and it's just not easy. Once you've been in a battle theater, it's very hard to leave it.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
This isn't a political question, is it? I don't like war. I don't know of anybody that does like war. Sometimes, for good reasons, war is necessary. Sometimes, for bad reasons, wars are fought with no decisive end. War is a necessity to keep the balance and to keep peace, but it's just now they just fight wars for no good reason at all, or for fabricated reasons. My feelings about the military is that the military has gotten the raw end of the deal from our politicians for the last 15, 20 years, and they have shackled the military with unreasonable rules, and they don't supply the military with what they need, and hopefully that's going to change here.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
What dear? What?
What message?
Message, okay. Wow, what message? That's a tough one. Back when I was getting into service and they had to draft, I felt as though it was my obligation and my American duty to join the service, and I didn't. Most of the guys back then, they didn't have political affiliations. They weren't up to date on exactly why the war was going on, or why they don't even call it a war. It was a conflict, and I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say a message that I want to leave them. You know, I think it's in every young man and every young woman's heart that they want to help and defend their country, and more power to them. And I support them 100%. And that's one of the reasons I joined the American Legion, because the American Legion and the American Legion Riders and the Patriot Guard and all these outfits that I belong to, we don't do anything but support the military and support the military veterans when they come back home, just to make absolutely sure that the veterans that are coming home now weren't treated the way we were treated when we came home from Vietnam. And that's what we spend all our doing, is raising money for veterans organizations, raising money to help support wounded warriors and like Got Your Six support dogs and stuff. So, you know, we spend all our time now making sure that the GIs that come home have a good reunion.
I heard you mention motorcycles. You like to ride your motorcycle?
Oh, yeah.
What is that about?
I've been riding motorcycles since I was 16, and I'll be 73 here in May. And I belong to an organization called the American Legion Riders, and there are some 160,000 American Legion riders in the United States and overseas and foreign, over in foreign countries now. And that's all we do is we ride to raise money for the veterans. We hold events to raise money for the veterans. We ride military escorts for funerals, and we have a scholarship fund called the American Legion Legacy Scholarship Fund, where we ride every year and raise money for the fallen soldiers since 9/11, so that when their kids grow up and they're ready to go to college, if whatever scholarships and grants and everything else they don't get, then they apply to us and we will pay the rest of their college tuition so that their parents don't have to do it, and then we'll take care of it for them.
That's awesome. Is there anything that you feel that we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview? Any other stories? Or
No, for the most part, it wasn't it wasn't a totally bad experience, but we got to stretch this out. It wasn't totally a bad experience, and if I had to do it again, I certainly would do it again. They won't take me now, I'm too old. So anybody else that wants to go, I mean, I'll be more than happy to support them in that. Any stories I'd have to tell, they're not really suitable for a recording session. And wow, I just don't know what else to say.
do you enjoy being retired?
Pardon me?
Do you enjoy being retired?
Oh, yeah. I'm retired. My wife is retired, and we only had one child, so we could make sure that we gave her everything that we could possibly give her. And now I've got 4 grandkids, and we do whatever traveling and everything we can do with the grandkids. And I guess my granddaughter's in gymnastics. My grandson does karate. You do? Yeah, and my granddon does karate, and then I got a 2-year-old granddaughter that's still just making a mess over everything, and then a 1-year-old granddaughter, and we just celebrated her birthday. So.
Where all have you traveled with them?
With them? Oh, down in Missouri. Let's see. Las Vegas. My granddaughter went to Las Vegas for gymnastics. My daughter went out to Las Vegas for a USA Gymnastics camp out there. And then we travel around with Liam going to karate events and stuff.
Why did you join the Navy?
I joined my dad was in the Army Air Force, and when I went to check and see where I was on the draft that one day, I came home and I told Dad, I says, like I'm number 3 to go in October, and I don't want to go into the Marine Corps. He asked me what I wanted to do. Well, when we were kids, my dad would take us out to they were building a big highway by our house, and he'd take us out there on Saturday, and we'd go out and have picnics and watch all the heavy equipment operating and stuff, building the roads. And I said, well, I'd like to do that. So he said, go join the Navy Seabees. So I went down and joined the Navy and enlisted as a Seabee. So they couldn't send me anyplace else.
What did you build?
Oh, the first time I went over to Vietnam, we built a Hawk surface-to-air missile base in Da Nang, where we went in and actually knocked the complete top of a mountain off, and then built an anti-aircraft missile base up there. The second time I went over, we built roads, and then we started building a combat base. We built the runway up there for the airplanes. Then I went on detachment, and we built watchtowers up along the DMZ. We rebuilt the runway up in a place called Khe Sanh, and built a special forces camp right there at the Cambodian border. And then the third time I went over there, we did the same thing. We built another combat base in Quang Tri. We built the runway there, roads, and it was down in like the desert, so they didn't have any rock or stuff. So we'd go up into the mountains to the rock crusher and get a load of rock, or take a load of sand up and bring a load of rock back down in the morning and one in the afternoon, so we could build concrete. Use cement down below, and they use the sand up on top to make concrete.
Did you look up to anyone whenever you were younger?
Did I look up to anybody when I was younger? Just my dad. My dad spent 10 or 12 hours a day working and saving money just so he could take the family on vacation 1 week a year. And everything they did was revolved around taking us, my brother and I, on a vacation once a year. And we had a boat, and we'd go. My dad taught me how to water ski and stuff, and so every year when we go down to the lake, we'd go water skiing in it.
What kind of motorcycle do you have?
The only kind, a Harley Davidson. I got a big Harley Davidson Electric Glide Classic 2007, and that's my road bike, and I've got about 56,000 miles on it. And my wife and I ride all around the country. With the American Legion, raising money for the Legacy Scholarship Fund. This year, the Legacy Scholarship ride, we're going to ride up to Mackinac Island, and then up over the UP, and across Lake Superior and Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, up to Brainerd, Minnesota, and then down to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and then we'll ride back home from there. And that whole trip is gathering money for the Legacy Scholarship Fund. And then I got a little 1993 hot rod Sportster that I built that I've got about 5 times more money tied up in it than I got way more money tied up in it than it's worth. But it's like a military tribute bike.
What got you into motorcycles?
Oh, I don't know. I don't even know how long it is. I was 16, and I bought my first motorcycle when I was 16 years old. I have no idea why. It was, I don't know. It was saying I've had motorcycles ever since I was 16. Like I said, I'm 72 now. So how long is that? That's all right. Yeah, it's a long time, longer than you. Longer than you are old. Oh, wow.
Were any friends or family that joined the military with you?
No,
Just
no. My brother wasn't old enough. He's 4 years younger, and none of my friends had joined. But I mean, they had joined, but I didn't go with them. No, it was I went by myself. Like I enlisted in October or November. And I'm sorry, I enlisted in October, and they told me I wouldn't have to go until January. But I got a phone call on December 15th, said they had one billet open for a heavy equipment operator, and if I wanted it, I had to go now. And if I didn't go now, they would put me any place they want. So I came home and told Mom and Dad I had to go, and I packed up my stuff, and 2 days later I was on a train going to Chicago.
what's the best place you've ever traveled to?
Oh, Sydney, Australia, without a doubt. Yeah, Sydney's a nice place. Australia's a nice place. I got to stay there for 7 days. So.
How did you cut off the top of a mountain?
You just start at the top with the bulldozer, and you just start pushing the dirt off to the side, and it's just a technique, side cutting technique, and you just keep pushing the dirt off the side until it's all flat. Then once you've got it all flat, then you take the dozers and you start building the road down. And we had 3 different elevations. The very top is where we chopped the top of the mountain off, and then we had an equipment, the Marines, and a garage on one level, and then further down we had where the CBs and our barracks and our garages were. But that was a lot of fun. It was a difficult undertaking.
What was one of your least favorite places to travel?
North Vietnam, up around the DMZ. That wasn't pretty up there. The country as a whole was just beautiful. I mean, there were wild orchids every place, and the jungle was pretty. And they had beautiful mountains and beautiful beaches and stuff. I mean, the country as a whole was really a beautiful country. It's just, what went on. It was difficult to see the beauty when you were there. But other than that, Vietnam's a beautiful country.
What did your uniform look like that you had to wear?
Pardon me?
Your uniform, what did it look like?
When I joined, they gave us a seed bag full of dress blues and navy, the regular blue Navy uniform. But since I was in the CBs, they took that away and they put it into storage, and we wore fatigues the same as what the Marine Corps wore, the camouflaged outfit or the camouflage uniform. But the CBs never did have a real strict uniform, so when we were out working and it was 115 or 120 degrees, I mean, we'd be working in just our pants and then our flak jacket with no shirt or no hat or nothing on except for our helmet. But that wasn't like the rest of them. Everybody else had to be full dressed. We didn't. They didn't care.
What does the CBs mean?
CBs it started out in World War II, and the CB stood for Construction Battalion. And then along the way, they put it as SEABEES, and our mascot, or Our logo is a bee, is a bee with a combat helmet on and wrenches and guns and stuff. So CB is the letter C and the letter B stands for construction battalions, but they changed it to CBs. I don't know. I'd have to look it up, but it's CBs.
Was it hard being away from family?
Pardon me?
Was it hard being away from your family?
Oh yeah, but you're so busy most of the time that you don't really realize it. It just you're just on the go all the time, and you don't really have time to think about anything.
Well, that's all.
That's all.
Yeah.
Good. That was horrible. You can throw that one in the cutting table.
Thank you.
Sure.